Hey, Otis, you want to join in with us? If you do, request to join and I'll bring you on. Hi, Keith. How are you? I'm going to introduce you today and let everyone know that you're going to come on next week, week after next.
Hey, doctor.
How are you doing? Thanks for joining.
I'm all right.
Oh, listen, I accepted your request, Dr. Whiteman. I don't know what's happening. Let me try it again. Hello, everyone. Come on in. And there you are.
Dr. Whiteman, how you doing?
Hey, Otis, how are you?
Good, good.
Hello, everybody's joining in. Otis, this is your first time being here with us tonight. What we usually do is give it about 5 minutes to let people just come in. We've been getting more and more folks on the live, and it's just been amazing. So I've been giving it about 5 minutes for people to join.
No, it's good. I normally have a meeting at this time, but we pushed it to another day. So
Okay,
this
cool.
this time slot should be open.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is Wayne Lassane.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing today?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Finally getting a little warm out here in Cali, so.
Come on now.
It's that good warm though, right?
Yeah, the real warm.
Well, it has not gotten above low 70s yet. And so right now, this week, we actually coming up, we'll hit the high 80s, and by Saturday, we'll hit 92. So I feel like we're starting to get back to the weather. We can't even go to the beach because it's so cold out here. Yeah.
If you guys are just coming in, please invite people who you think may benefit from this. This is Men Suffer Too. Let's talk men's mental health. We're going to get started in just a moment. I have this little arm thing and I want to make sure it won't fall. There it is. Hopefully it won't fall. Because this iPhone can be a bit heavy. So how's everyone doing? Hope this day finds everyone well. Everyone that has joined and everyone that is on here. You might have noticed we haven't been on here for the past couple of weeks where it was a holiday, and then we changed to to every other week. So instead of being on here every week like we were, guys, we're on here every other week now. So we're on here today, so we won't be back until the 10th. I think it's July 10th.
Yeah.
After today, and then it's 2 weeks after 2 weeks after that. So it's every other week. And then in August or September, we're going to go back to every week. So no, we haven't stopped coming on here regularly. We're still coming. Because I got a message last week like, Dr. Rogers, where are you? But we're still here. We just changed it for the summertime, just so we could have some self-care for ourselves and, enjoy time for the summer as well, so that we can, enjoy our families and everything too. So we went every 2 weeks, but we'll be back to every week in September, August or September. What did we decide, guys?
September. I think it was September.
Okay. Yeah. So while we're waiting, I'm just going to go over some admin really quick. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun,
Look at you.
Yeah.
Yes, guys, it is here. Look, so for those of you who have pre-ordered, the books are in, and we just did another shipment. This is a sample they just sent me, and we just did another shipment. So for those of you who have pre-ordered, I mail all magazines out, all books actually. Whatever you buy off the bookstore gets mailed out every Monday. So on Mondays it's mailed out, so you still have time to get your copy. on the cover, Allison Williams, who's excellent performer. Oh, excellent performer. I might have to change this. Excellent performer. Wait a minute, guys. I might have to change this thing. I bought this new little arm thing, and I might have to put it on my other thing that I had. All right, that's better. So Allison Williams, who is a great performer. She is on the cover, R&B soloist, jazz artist. She has a multi-talented woman. She's talking about her relationship with the late and great Phyllis Hyman. If you guys are familiar with her, I used to love her back in the day. Phyllis Hyman committed suicide some years back, so Allison and her were like really, really close. And she talks about her relationship, their relationship, and how her suicide impacted her, right? And she also talks about experiences with mental health herself as well, you know, growing up. So it's a great read in here. We have a lot of different articles in here that are amazing. We have a couple new columns called Silent Hallways is one, where we, the professionals, talk about our own experiences with mental health. You know, guys, I feel like, how can I come to you guys and promote discussions around mental health, but not be vulnerable myself, right? How can I expect you guys to talk about mental illness and mental health, but then not really be vulnerable myself, right? So this is how we as clinicians come forward and talk about our experiences as well. And we often have seen that during COVID. You know, when COVID, we struggled a lot, right? We were watching our colleagues succumb to COVID, and we still had to go to work. We were watching our colleagues become sick. We still had to go to work, right? So, you know, we talk about that in the magazines as well. So get your copy on, Wayne, can you put the website in the comment, please? mentalhealthtalk.live, mentalhealthtalk.live, that would be great. Also, guys, on the July 9th and the 16th, I will be doing free mindfulness meditation for relaxation. My plan is to do it every week, but we're going to test it right now. I did this once when during the height of COVID. I did mindfulness, relaxation, and meditation, and I had a whole lot of people come. So I'm going to do it again without. I'm not going to charge yet. So if you guys want these free sessions to see what it's like, it's going to be Sunday, July 9th and July 16th. So if you know anyone that may benefit, you know, just to decrease anxiety or come in just to kind of reset. I figured I wanted to do it on Sundays. I was asked to do it on Sundays and Fridays, but right now it's going to be a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to do it every Sunday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will do mindfulness, meditation, and relaxation. I am interviewing people to do mindfulness meditation with me. So if I can get other people on board, then I may offer more days. But for now, it's just me. And I think I have one other person that we interviewed. I need to talk to you guys about that. But for now, it's just me. So I will be offering mindfulness, meditation, and relaxation on July 9th and the 16th. Lastly, I will be offering cognitive processing therapy for trauma. But, guys, it's going to be in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So if you're in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I will have that group cognitive processing therapy for trauma for men. Lo?
I'm TM certified.
What's that?
Transcendental meditation.
Oh, you have to tell us about that. I haven't heard of that.
TM's kind of what started meditation in general back in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. And TM is a ashram Buddhist-based methodology.
Yeah.
And I mean, other than getting into all the details, I'm certified in that.
Well, there you go. So we're here to offer. We don't only want to talk about mental illness.
However,
and mental health.
I will not shave my head. I'm just telling you right now, I will not shave my head.
I'm
not going to use little symbols in my fingers, you know, or wear an orange robe. Just stopping right there. Dead stop.
So those are the updates. And then lastly, Keith Shibley. He's on here too somewhere. I saw his name pop up. He's going to be on, Keith Shibley is going to be on with us on the 10th. He is former law enforcement. He's going to come and show some vulnerability himself around his experiences with substance use, especially as a law enforcement officer. And I think it's going to be an amazing story. I've talked to him. And so, Keith, hi, how are you? I saw your name pop up here. I'm looking forward to hearing his story next week and for you guys to hear his story, because it's going to validate a lot of people, especially when it comes to pain management and looking at outside sources, right, for the to handle pain, to take care of pain, right? Especially in the military, pain is huge. You know, you think about these military folks, they walk around with these large backpacks and things on, this heavy stuff, especially people that jump out of planes and things of that sort. A lot of pain, you know, when they're, you know, finally retire and get out. Well, why are you in the military?
Yeah. Oh, I know firsthand. You
Yeah.
know, I was combat arms, and so I already know what it is to carry these 65-pound rucksacks on 12-mile road marches, and you know, jumping off the top of 5-ton vehicles, and on a consistent basis, lifting 100-pound rounds on a, you know, and you know, shooting 15 rounds and you know, in 5 minutes, you know, all weighing 100 pounds apiece. So I know about it.
Yeah, so we're gonna have Keith Shibley on here next week after next on the 10th. So guys, please make sure you come back, because I can't wait for him to share his story.
And Leslie, whoever has Otis's phone number, would you text him the document I sent to you and Wayne? It's a 5-point agenda for today.
Wayne,
I don't have Otis's phone number.
Yeah.
oh, you sent it via text message?
Yeah, I sent a text. It's a Word document. It's got 5 points about vulnerability in men and, you know, all the stuff we've talked about for today.
It works.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm on my phone.
Doctor, I'm going to have to tap. I got to pick my daughter up in about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Let's just get started.
Cool.
Yeah, let's
get going then.
So guys, this is Let's Talk Mental Health. Let's Talk Men's Mental Health with Dr. Leslie Rogers. Now we have guest Odis James here. He's one of the Men Suffer Too campaign spokespersons, him along with Wayne Lassane. And we have Dr. Lowell Whiteman. So let's get this discussion started. We're on here every week, guys. Some of you have been here, and I see a lot of new faces here. A lot of names were popping up today. So let's get this discussion started. And if you guys have any questions at all, post in a comment. This should be an interactive discussion, right? We talk, and we'd love to hear you guys talk as well. So, you know, be engaged, you know, talk back to us. And if you want to come up on stage, I don't even have a problem with bringing you on stage if you're having something to contribute. So, Dr. Lowe and Wayne, and you guys can take it away.
Well, I'll start it off. We've got a topic that's near and dear to my heart, because vulnerability for the male ego is one of, it's in the shadows. We don't tend to want to pop out and be open with our thoughts and feelings, and especially with those masculine football players and, you know, rugby players and what else? Tennis. Oh no, wait a minute. They're not as masculine as we are in football. Sorry. No deference towards tennis players. My point is, but seriously, my point is that women have the right to be spoken and heard and present, and with those ideologies and attitudes, there's an impression about the male's responsibility of participation. And that requires some vulnerability on our part. But interestingly enough, it's not a course we can choose in college as a prereq. And we certainly weren't raised through the masculine hallways of childhood to understand what it means to be sensitive. You know, like Tom Hanks says in that wonderful movie, there's no crying in baseball. So fear and tears just don't go together in most of the male drivers. So we've got a discussion today about, I'll set it up with the counter example of, do women have the right to call us out and be vulnerable? Why aren't you more sensitive? How come you're not showing your heart to me? I need to understand where you're coming from. And I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but I want to make the point that, yes, they have the right to ask us that. But are we prepared to deliver?
Yeah.
And if we're not, legitimately so, some of us may not be. We don't want to deliver. I don't want to be vulnerable. This is who I am. I'm a macho pain in the ass, and that's who I want to be. But there's also the discussion that has to happen so that level of sensitivity, whatever degree it is, gets itself out there. Well, let's talk about predisposition then, because there are many men who come from a military background, come from a tough, rough and tumble perspective that have suffered as a result of that, and they're not very self-reliant. They're not very strong in their heart, and they use the mask of masculinity as a way to cover that up because it's just too painful to be vulnerable. So there's the other side. Women don't understand it because we haven't shared. See the juxtaposed catch-22 we have? So guys, how do we get there? That's what our discussion's about. And ladies, how do you help us get to that place if you discover that vulnerability is not an easy path for us to take? We need your help. Because
and that's
there
without
is
becoming
fear.
ourselves. I guess I'm going to be here tonight as the woman, the voice, but that's without getting frustrated ourselves because you asked, that's an excellent question. How do we help? But how do we help if we're not allowed to penetrate?
Well,
and so
interesting selection of terms. I'll leave that to the side. But and thank you, Odis, for getting the innuendo there. But there's a fear of rejection and negative judgments. So yes, we want you to get our attention and nurture us through that vulnerable stage. But we've got to know there's a reward at the end, that we're not going to be just holding ourselves out there for you to take shots at us, because you are deserving of being heard and present and understood, but both have risks.
Right. So
both parties.
let's hear Odis first, because I know he has to jump off. I'm going to listen first before I chime in.
Go, Odis.
Go. My perspective on that.
Yeah.
Was it? I think he nailed it when he said that there's got to be a reward at the end. We also have to take into consideration who is the other person that we're talking to, because I think in the context of a marriage, I think a man's commitment to be vulnerable is a little more than in the context of maybe a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Do they still call it that? Boyfriend-girlfriend? Non-married relationship? I don't know, right? It's not on a loan application. So I think that's what gets people concerned. And you also have the stigma associated with the thought process behind, oh, well, women don't really want that, right? They always go for the guy that's the opposite, right? Now, granted, I don't think that's that's necessarily true. I just think the people that does apply to just happen to all have podcasts and they're on social media the most, right? So it's a back and forth, right? Is it worth it? Like risk versus gain. What am I risking by doing this versus what do I gain? And, I can only speak from my experience. It's been times where, to me, it just didn't seem worth it because it was just going through, it just seemed like more trouble than it was worth sometimes. I wish I had a better perspective on it, but, but I'm still evolving, right? So, but right now it's, and it also depends, okay, how vulnerable are we talking to, right? Like, it's one thing to be vulnerable and say, it's I who left the toilet seat up. It's another thing to be vulnerable and say, well, I'm like this because this happened to me when I was a kid, right? So I think the degree of sharing also plays a part in, the outcome that we expect. But go ahead, Doctor. What do you think?
Well, I think that I will say quickly. I think that comfortability plays a role too, and I think from a woman, where I become frustrated is if we've been together for, even whether you're married or not married, whether you're in a relationship, right? You're in a relationship and you've been together for so many years, or, a year, 2 years, 3 years, that comfortability should be there where you should feel comfortable enough to talk to me about something, right? I think that's where the frustration come in from a woman. And I don't know if there's other females on here, women on here, that and you talk about that risk versus gain, right? But how long does a risk last? I mean, when do you trust me enough to talk to me about what you're going through, or so that I can help, right? Wayne, you were going to say something?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a couple of things. I think Dr. Whiteman brought up a couple of great points, and to add to it, I think that for one, I think like a woman has to figure out a way, and I'm not saying she has to do this, but if she's going to be in a relationship with somebody, she has to figure out a way to have the capacity to show up, right, and allow him to be vulnerable, and he has to feel safe. That she's not going to weaponize that against him, later on down the road that she's gonna now weaponize his emotions and his feelings against him. And that takes time to truly feel safe with somebody. Because that is being vulnerable is a huge thing, right? That's the probably the deepest thing that we have to us, right? That we don't share with most people. So that's why we wear these masks and we wear these suits of armor, and our defenses are always up to protect ourselves to not get hurt. And so I need to be able to trust the person that I'm with is not going to weaponize my emotions against me. So it's more so like I can share with you, but I have to trust that you're not going to turn it against me, you know. And I have to also us as men, we're learning how to be vulnerable. This is a new thing for us. It's a shift, right? It's a paradigm shift that, you know, that women now are now looking for men to show up more emotionally. Like I have clients that I work with, and they say it to me all the time, like, man, like I don't know what she means by be more vulnerable. I don't know what she means like to share my feelings. And I don't think it's like, you know, to the extent of, you know, like sharing in the sense of I love you, I want to be with you. I think it's more so like, you know, you wake up in the morning with anxiety, right? And you say, and now you share that, hey, look, today I'm in this space. I'm just giving you a heads up. That's me sharing now. I'm feeling, I have a lot of anxiety because of A, B, and C is on my mind. Now she can feel like she's part of this experience that I'm going through, you know, whatever. So now she's like, oh, so how can I show up for you? What can I do for you to help you or whatever? And that's different, right? Opposed to just having an attitude when I wake up in the morning. And she's like, oh, what's going on? Nothing, you know, like that. Now I'm not being vulnerable. I'm not sharing. And now she is frustrated because she doesn't know why I'm showing up in the way I'm showing up. So I thought, you know, that's why I love what Dr. Whiteman said about something, because I think that there were great points. And it's just like, asked, like, yes, we're learning how to be vulnerable. So we just need some patience. This is new for us. We you know, we weren't taught these as children. You know, we're men, was tough. We don't cry. We don't process our emotions, you know, the way we're supposed to. We process them through anger, you know, frustration, violence, you know, and substance abuse in some cases. And because this is what, you know, this is our outlet. Now we're just now learning. So yeah.
Well, and let me add to this to ask you guys this question, ask you about boundaries. So I'm going to ask you about boundaries in the areas of romance, intimacy, and raising children. So I'd like Odis to start with, what are the boundaries with your spouse, your partner, about children, so that you can be that representative example of vulnerability that Wayne and I both said we didn't get. We learned it on our own. Nobody was guiding us to find out what it meant to be vulnerable. So as it relates to boundaries and guiding your children with your spouse about, because she's going to have her perspective too, you know, and yet we as guys, we don't initiate the conversation about the boundaries on how, when, and to what degree am and should I be vulnerable.
Yeah. I've never actually had that conversation. Unfortunately, it's usually been my way or the highway, and I say unfortunately because there's no good outcome when that's it, right? So I think the times, you know, when I was married, I hadn't yet evolved into this person, so my perspective now is a lot different than it was then. But we had, you know, gender roles, right? And with respect to the children, I was the disciplinarian, you were the nurturer, because that's how I was raised. And then, you know, thanks to some stupid decisions and the people.
Oh, what happened?
There he's back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. So thanks to some dumb decisions and the great people at the Department of Justice, I had to take some classes on parenting without violence and some other things. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to be forced into that situation before I was able to listen about this whole other world about raising children and relationships, because I thought, look, I'm not violent towards anybody, so why do I have to be in here? It was one of those types of situations. But then I listened and, you know, got to hear a lot of other people's perspective and learned about, you know, a lot of the damage that can be done just based on my words, right? So I think that was really the starting point for me. But I still haven't had the actual conversation. I just haven't. I'm so focused on just being more nurturing and disciplining as opposed to punishing, and just really trying to have a relationship with my kids and getting their perspective and seeing, like, all right, what are you experiencing? What are you feeling? I'm just a different person now.
Well, you mentioned
it's new to me too.
you mentioned two key things, Otis, to what the question I asked you about the boundaries, and that boundary is listening skills, and the other boundary was asking good questions, because your questions causes anybody, child or adult, to start thinking about where's my place, where do I fit in. So as I think Otis is going to be departing is to go get his daughter, I'd like that we talk about the boundaries as it relates to romance and intimacy for Dr. Leslie and Wayne, because you guys see a lot of clients that are in those situations, and part of what I've discovered with men is their vulnerability opens up when people start talking about how they want the structure of their relationship to go in regards to intimacy or romance. Because in those areas, it's like we get primal, the guys. We just go real meat eater about the whole thing, and we don't open our minds up and be vulnerable. We just want to be satisfied, and that's not always a good thing. It can be good, but it's not always a good thing for long-term relationship development.
Yeah.
So I'd like Dr. Leslie and Wayne to kind of speak about boundaries in those two categories, and how men and women can develop that intertwined existence that is very vulnerable for both.
Absolutely. And, I've talked about boundaries a lot, especially in therapy. Boundaries are sometimes difficult to establish, either for ourselves or for others, because sometimes they don't feel good. And sometimes boundaries end in lost relationships or either ruptured relationships. Sometimes you set boundaries for others that you want in your life, like whether it's respect or whether it's listening skills or whether it's whatever boundaries you like to set. Sometimes they're uncomfortable because you don't know if you're going to lose that person. A lot of times I hear people say, I don't want to set boundaries because I'm going to lose a friendship. I'm going to lose someone that I care really about, or I'm going to make someone angry with me if I set boundaries, right? So a lot of times we don't set boundaries because sometimes they feel uncomfortable with doing. But sound boundaries are necessary because I think that in the end, when you set boundaries, it allows people to understand who you are and what it is that you want for yourself, right? Especially when they're consistent boundaries, when they're not loose boundaries. You set a boundary and you stick with it. So boundaries are important in your personal life, not only for you, but for others. Boundaries are important for your children. It's important to teach your children how to set boundaries, especially when they're around their peers and et cetera. So they're really important. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and it's okay to, communicate what you're feeling in situations like that. So, Otis, I know that you are about to jump off. I wanted to ask a question, and then can we come back to that really quickly, Dr. Law? Because I want to ask him something just before I leave, because I want all you guys to ask this. As a woman, Otis, what do I need to do to support you? As a woman, what would you want a woman to do to support you? Support you emotionally so that you can be comfortable with showing vulnerability.
That's a tough question for me because all my relationships are messed up because I'm a mess. So
Well,
I don't.
that takes vulnerability just to say that. So thank you for sharing that.
I think I'm still exploring that because
Mm-hmm.
I can't get the result that I'm looking for until I can articulate what it is that I actually need. And a lot of my interactions with women weren't conducive to a healthy relationship because, to be honest, that wasn't what I was looking for in that particular situation. So I'm trying to evolve. I'm evolving out of that frame of mind. I think there's just a certain level of maturity that comes along with those interactions. So that's always been a tough point for me, because the short answer is, well, I'm not looking for anything because I'm not really. Yeah, there's no way to clean that up to where it sounds.
No,
I'm just not looking for that.
yeah.
All right.
And that's very big of you to acknowledge that, because you just took a mask off for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
For everyone to see, that mask came off for a minute. And, you know, and I asked that question because I know with being in a relationship, when I've asked people that question, you know, what can I do to be there for you emotionally? That it's hard to answer that question, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes guys will say, I don't need you to be there for me at all. But that's really not true because there's some way that you need me to be there for you. And then when that's not fulfilled, then it potentially result in conflict, right?
Right.
So being
I,
able to communicate, that's
I,
okay. You
I,
can
I
jump
gotta
off.
step up. I'll
Okay,
talk to you later, Dr.
yeah,
Leonard.
it's
See you guys
okay.
later.
Thank you so much for jumping on. See you in 2 weeks. So it's important to communicate what you're feeling and to kind of think about what you're feeling in a more deeper level, because the surface consciously, impulsively, the answer is, I don't need you to be here for me. I don't need you to show up. And I think that's an impulsive response because really inside you really do, but you just don't know how to communicate it. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah. Again, you're
Yeah.
asking somebody to be vulnerable, and they
Right.
don't even know how. You know, and I think that when we go back to even like boundaries, you know, I think some people can mistake boundaries for rules, and and really, it's not because they like, oh yeah, let me set it, and you're creating boundaries for yourself to protect you, right? To have someone else show up for you away, you know, because you have now created these boundaries. But I think a lot of times what people tend to do is they don't respect their own boundaries. So if you don't respect your own boundaries, how is somebody else is supposed to respect your boundaries? And we tend to allow people to cross our boundaries all the time, you know. And so then, and we're not now we're not honoring ourselves, right? Because we're not taking care of ourselves. So again, it just I truly feel like this is for me when I think about all the things that why relationships fail and why it's you know, and why, you know, and I don't just mean romantic relationships. I'm speaking in friendships, work relationships, family relationships, you know, all relationships. And a lot of times it's because, again, you know, I think just as humans, we haven't been taught how to show up for ourselves. You know, we're a lot of times we find ourselves trying to do a lot of emotional labor for others and not ourselves. You know, so again, not taking care of ourselves in many different ways, right? You know, because we don't want to upset somebody. We want somebody to feel good, or we don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, which we would make ourselves uncomfortable and deal with the uncomfortableness instead of taking care of ourselves. So, right. And so all these things go into as part of this, but going back to what we're talking about, vulnerability, I just think that again, you know, it's how do we come together and create a safe space to be vulnerable, right? How do we show men that it's almost like we have to, as men, we have to let go the idea of who we think we are supposed to be and how we supposed to show up. So we have to let go of that idea. And once we can let go, start to work on letting that idea go, now we can start to show up, because it's learning how to process our emotions. And that takes for us to speak them out loud a lot of times, you know, because hence therapy, you know what I mean? And may it be talk therapy, may it be a mentor, may it be a group, you know, processing group, it may it be some podcasts or some things you listen to, reading, whatever. It's just learning to give. And like I think that what I've heard is that sometimes men don't know how to articulate themselves. Well, this is how you find the language. This is how you find the tools to now express yourself by going through it and doing it. When they say the work, this is the work, right? Just kind of learn, so you can learn how to undo a lot of things that aren't helpful to you today.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. So
what Otis just did, what he just did was a perfect example of how to kind of process and reflect. He just did a perfect self-reflection on what he was feeling and, you know, and putting it into words. And that was a big old acknowledgement that he did, right?
yeah.
It took a lot of vulnerability to do it, not only to do it, but to do it on a platform where other people are listening, right?
Yeah.
That's vulnerable.
Yeah. And real quick, and also just having this conversation, I think that, you know, even within this idea of vulnerability, I think that men need to learn. You have to learn how to have capacity. I mean, have to create this compassion for themselves. You know, have you know, because we tend to be really hard on ourselves because, like, oh man, I can't do this. Or, you know, we got to start having compassion, because again, this is new. This is new. This isn't something that we've always had access to or we're always doing. So because it's new, let's create some compassion for selves. You know, make sure that, like I think that we were talking about, hell, meditation, whatever it is that you do for yourself, for self-care. We need to start doing more of that to create that space and to have the capacity for compassion for ourselves. So yeah.
Let me just Dr. Lowe, let me read this really quick what someone said. Some men don't express their feelings because they don't want to seem weak, but for me that makes you look strong. Anyone want to respond to that?
Well, and that leads it, what I was going to comment on is that being vulnerable isn't necessarily about boundaries. And so I'm glad we talked about boundaries. In many cases, it's breaking the boundaries down. And that happens many times with couples, whether it's a friendship, intimacy, whatever, by you front loading your expectations, that people look at you through your eyes because you've shared with them, hey, here's how I'd like you to talk to me. Here's the kind of words that just flip me out. If you use this word in this context, I'm going to go ballistic. Or the other way, well, that really embarrasses me. So if we can educate men and women on how to front load who they are to the other person or persons, we're going to have a better journey, a more clarified, reasonable, and realistic journey in our track towards vulnerability, because it'll have integrity. I've just shared with you, I've dropped down and I've front loaded myself to you so that you understand what about me you can trust. Now, here's the key for me, is taking the action with my capabilities, which are they're transparent, they're not phony. So I now become trustworthy.
Yeah.
It's that performance capability along with my trust that really makes me trustworthy. But that's not going to happen unless you front load the expectations about who you are and are able to drop down to that comfortable place. The person and people see you do that. It's genuine. It has high integrity. But I tell you what, as we all know, it takes some courage to do that in any given subject matter, because as Wayne and I've talked about in the past, men are socially conditioned to be an asshole.
Yeah.
We talked about men of color who have been socially conditioned to be this kind of machismo person and treat women a certain way. Well, get rid of that. That's not front loading who you are. That's not you dropping down into a place that's vulnerable that you can control. So I'm very big on making sure that we front load who we are with the expectations that are real and have integrity, so that we have a sincere path of integrity with humility in dealing with anybody.
I
Those
love
influences
that.
are based on, I think, past experiences too. I think that behaviors are guided by past experiences as well. When we talk about, those cultural differences, like men of color versus white males versus black males versus Asian males versus et cetera. I think a large contributing factor to that, we talk about cultural differences, right, is upbringing and, how we see our parents interact with each other, how we see adult figures in school systems interact with each other. I mean, I think that, a lot of that comes from past experiences and continued rearing as you grow up into maturity and into adulthood as well. I will say that transparency is great, but you have to sit with the emotions, because a lot of times when you say, it's good to come forward, it's good to be upfront, a lot of those emotions come flooding in. And when you get afraid of those emotions that you kind of step back and say, nope, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this because it doesn't feel good, right? But I think that the important piece is you have to learn how to sit with your emotions and be okay with your emotions and kind of process through them so that you can be better communicators. That, wow, that didn't feel too good. I said this to you, but I don't know, that didn't feel too good. And I'll tell you why it didn't feel too good, right? Understanding yourself so that you can be better communicators with other people. Now, it's not just men. Sometimes us women too, we have things that we don't open up about as well, right? Until we feel comfortable, right? But with men, I think that just like James on here said, that signs of weaknesses or those stigmas behind men and how men should be, right? Each culture, I believe, define a man, right? Again, being a Black woman, growing up in a Black family, we had roles that are, like Otis said, we had roles that the man was in, right? The head of the household. He was a moneymaker. He was the dad. He was the uncle. He was whomever, you know. And it was hard. It's kind of hard to kind of not save face when you're in certain environments because of what you believe people may think of you or judge you or things of that sort. So sit with the emotions, you know, understand what the emotions are, understand the precipitating factors of the emotions so that you can better communicate those emotions when you're in vulnerable situations.
Yeah, I think that, you know, a lot, I just think that times have changed, you know, and so we have to change with the times. Again, I think that's a hard concept for people to grasp. If they, again, it's a skill set, right? It's a skill to know how to be vulnerable, to learn how to use words, to know how to process emotions. Those are all skills that are taught. These aren't things that we just know. I think that we could know, it depends on our household, how we brought up. You know, we could know them from an early age, but most of us don't get that for many different reasons. And so because of that, we just it's a skill that we have to learn, you know, and how do we get that skill? We go out and actually seek, you know, different, you know, places to learn those skills in. And hopefully you have someone to model around you. I think that most of us don't even have a good model around us to even understand, like, oh, wow, how did you show up like that? Or how, you know, how are you able to have the patience in this situation? Or how are you able to express yourself in that way? You know, like, these are things that most of us don't have access to. Well, not just a lot of us don't have access to these people in our lives.
Right. I don't know what happened to Dr. Lowell. He just dropped off. I just texted him to see what happened. He must have had a bad connection. Yeah, so I see a lot of people on here today. Hey guys, we're on here talking about vulnerability in men, and let's talk men's mental health. If you guys have anything to contribute, a few of you, a couple people contributed, you know, really great comments on here about signs of weaknesses and how men, you know, show up and how they like to show up. And a vulnerability is sometimes tough. Sometimes men need to step up and be the nurturer, is what someone said. And sometimes women need to be the strong one, the protector. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? How does that make men feel when if we become the strong one and a protector? And you just brought up a good point, the person who said that, because gender roles are starting to change, right? They have changed, where men
paradigm shift I
home
was
taking care of kids and women are working, right? So
Yeah.
in those situations, then how does that make men feel when the woman is the breadwinner and the worker, and the men is staying home taking care of the children? How is that shift for you guys when you think about that? That's a good point. Thank you for that's James. Thank you for bringing that up. Wayne, what do you think? How do you think that that impacts, you know, self-confidence?
Well, again, it goes back to
Yeah,
it goes back to now you're talking about, like, men feeling if they're worthy, or they you know, what is their worth at that point now, right? Because now they feel as though, like, if you believe in accept gender roles, now you have to question what is your worth? You know, who are you? Because now you feel like you are now being demoted, kind of like you're less of a man. And I don't believe that to be true. I believe that, again, times have changed. Roles have shifted because of availability for women to work in jobs. You know, I think that people don't remember that. I think until like the 1950s, women weren't even allowed to have bank accounts. So, you know, again, they couldn't even go out into the world on their own and support themselves in a way that men could. So this is newer for us, right? In the bigger picture, this is a new thing for women and men, and new dynamics bring new challenges. And so it's how do we continue to move forward within the space that we're given? And I think that, you know, it's having people around you to support you as a man, to say, you know, it's okay. You know, like in California, you know, out here, I see a lot of men as stay-home dads. You know, I see a lot of women working in professions. And so it's not a huge thing for me out here, but I know that you could live in some environments maybe some coming up in the inner city where you see the man always working, then so now you have your perspective is different. You view things differently. So you believe that is your job, that is your role. And really it's so small because it's only in that small space that you're viewing the world from, in that lens. And it's stepping outside your comfort zone, stepping outside your box to see, so many other possibilities, options. Again, just surrounding yourself with people who maybe aren't from the area you're in, or don't just say yes or agree with everything that you agree with, so you can get this outside influence that maybe broaden your horizons around many different ideas. So yeah, I do think it right now it can be hard for some men to be in a household where they don't feel like they are pulling their weight, or supporting, in a way that they think that they should. But in reality, it's awesome because now you get to learn all kind of skills. You get to learn how to show up for your kids. You get to be a different type of parent. Then, like you get to just show up differently as a dad. I think it's amazing, right? I think that you get, just the skills that you bring in, you can kind of help your kids become more not that women don't teach their kids how to be self-sufficient, but, you can come in with just a different way of teaching self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Well, because you're models anyway, when you grow up and you raise your children, you become models. Your kids watch everything. They hear, they listen to everything, and they hear everything. So when you become role models, you show them a different perspective as to, okay, this is the traditional gender roles. You have the husband, you have the wife, you have the child, and these are the gender roles, right, that we grow up with. The husband is the one that's working, the mother's the one that's staying home taking care of kids, and the kids grow up and see this. But then you have that shift, that paradigm shift, where now you have women working. Women are making more money now, women are in fields that are making more money, and women are buying their own homes. They're becoming more self-reliant and self-sufficient, right? And men are staying home. I have a best friend where her husband stays home and takes care of her, right? Yeah. And that's okay, right? I think that both of you guys have to have the same level of self-esteem and self-confidence in that marriage and in that relationship to hold each other up, so that there's no hierarchy, right? Yeah. So, that battle between, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Again, it comes into where, people want to come in and they want to feel like one person has this role, when it's a partnership. And I think that people should view relationships as partnerships, right? Because maybe today I only got 30%, right? And my partner, understanding I got 30%, I'm gonna need you maybe to bring in 70% today because I only got 30. And I think that, and we can start to work together instead of working apart. I think that, again, and where it came up for me earlier is that, and I love front loading. That's one of my favorite things to talk about with my clients is front loading. And I think that a lot of times when coming in, and what are your intentions? You should even know your intentions when you're even coming in to deal with somebody, or in whatever kind of capacity you want to deal with them in. What are your intentions in coming into this relationship? Maybe friendship, romantic, whatever, right? And I think that if we can be clear on those things, then we get to take some of the ambiguity away. And now, and we can, so now it's not confusing. There's no confusion, because so saying, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, and so forth. And I think that tends to help. But again, like I think Odis says, that he wasn't even sure what he wants or what he needs, and so how do you even start that's a great place to start, but how do you start this, that looking into self and kind of just start asking yourself questions? Not
to cut you off, but then that brings, that can potentially bring forth conflict too, because if you're not sure what you want and what you need, and then you get into a relationship and your partner, wants one thing and you're not sure what you want. So then this leads to my next question for you, because Lo, you're married, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
43 years, 44 in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
awesome.
This is the question that I have for you all, because both of you guys are married. Do you think it's advantageous for men to, or for men and women to have these types of relationships, have these types of discussions at the beginning of the relationship, when the relationship is forming?
Yes.
After 30 years of experiencing when I didn't, and then dramatically understanding I should have, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Early and often, like voting in Chicago.
Yes. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. You know, yes, yes, 100%, yes.
And we look at, as guys, because of how we've been socialized into certain behaviors, we hold secrets because we feel if we say anything, it's going to be taken the wrong way or misunderstood, or it's going to lessen my machismo or whatever. Well, guess what? All that goes away if you just right up front say, this is what I'd like to do. This is what I want. And this is how long I'd like to do it for. And by the way, I don't make a lot of money. Can you help me when we go on a date?
So easy. So, and if some, and the fear is that you won't be accepted, and that's okay. You would rather that person not accept you anyways. You would rather that's not the person for you. You would rather move on and find somebody who will accept you for who you are.
And guys and gals, whether you're straight or gay, it doesn't matter. This applies to everybody because it's humanness. Just own your humanness. And so if it doesn't work, you say, thank you very much. I'm moving on. You didn't waste my time. I didn't waste yours. We're going on someplace else.
Yes.
That to me is the just boots on the ground definition of vulnerability.
Yes. Yes. I talk about these things all the time, so I love it. I with my clients. So yes.
It goes back to the 70s, Leslie, to let's be real.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. You know, I really think without the bell bottoms, elephant bell bottoms, and tie-dyed shirts, we are back into a revolution and a revelation at the same time. And if I could just get the attention of all the millennials, the IYs, whatever the generations are, and just say, look, we can all agree on one thing. Just be real.
Yes.
Just tell me what you want right here in this moment.
It's hard to be real sometimes because you know
theme of vulnerability.
How people are going to respond to you. I think you know, with all the stigmas, you know, that's going around, especially with populations such as men, you know, with the stigmas going around, especially when it comes to mental illness, you know, sometimes it's difficult to be real. So you have to be real with yourself first. You have to understand yourself, what it is you're feeling and what it is you're afraid of, right? I know you guys don't like to use that word afraid, and it's okay. Use resistant. Why are you resistant? Why are you guarded? Let's not use the word afraid, right? So you have to understand why you're so guarded around certain situations and why you're resistant to disclose or resistant to be vulnerable, right? And understand, well, you know, if I tell this person this thing about myself, then what is that going to say about my manhood, right? Well, then, okay, so then go a little bit deeper. What do you say about your manhood? You know, what do you think others think that your manhood should be like? Or, you know, what do you think about this? So go a little deeper and process about, I always bring it back to yourself as how you feel about yourself. Because oftentimes it's how we feel about ourselves that we project on other people, and we think that they feel the same way. But sometimes they don't. And guys, sometimes you have to take risks. Sometimes you have to take risks.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm gonna get deeply in touch with my feminine side and say, ladies, you have to ask for permission on how deep you'll be allowed to dig, because you don't know the landscape all the time about what the triggers are. So if you truly want to move forward with any kind of relationship, friend, intimate, whatever, ask for permission. And equally the same with men. When you're asking for a woman to be vulnerable and you're going down, you're tracking well, the discussion is really moving, you're feeling good about it, but all of a sudden it starts to slow. You got to go, is it okay if I ask a little deeper question? Do I have your permission to do that? And it often happens more with
willing, ladies, be willing.
Exactly.
I tell you, when guys open up about something that's, you know, really significant and an experience that they open up for, be willing to sit there and listen. And sometimes you don't even have to have a response, just listen, right? And let them give, because the one time they feel rejected, they're never going to share again, not with you, right? It takes one time for a guy to feel like they're rejected, and they're never going to share again, not with you, right? So be willing, women and ladies that's on here, you know, and this is from experience too, not only as Dr. Rogers, but you know, sometimes I think that we're even afraid to hear what they have to say. right?
Yeah.
Depending on what it's going to be, right? Like, oh, what are they getting ready to tell us, right? How are we going to respond to this? How are we going to show up for this guy? How are we going to be there for them emotionally, right? And be honest and upfront. Wow, you just told me something really powerful, and I'm not really sure how to respond to that. I hear you, and I hear what you're saying. It's really, I have to think about how to respond to that. It's all about being transparent and speaking your truth and speaking about what you're feeling in the moment, and without being afraid to speak it, without being afraid to say so. This has been a really great conversation, guys. Somebody else said, all these discussions need to be upfront and always be honest. Yeah, you're right. And sometimes honesty is a bit difficult. We're human. Are we honest about every single thing? And maybe honesty means, do we share about everything? No. Do Dr. Rogers, Leslie share everything? Absolutely not. I don't share everything either. I think that, the bottom line is we keep ourselves safe, but how much do we keep ourselves safe, and what do we share and what don't we share? Sometimes you get in relationships, some things just aren't important. I don't need to tell, if I get into a relationship, I don't need to tell them everything about me. But the most important stuff, you need to kind of process through what's important and what's not important. What's important for that relationship to thrive.
Well, and that gets back to the question I asked earlier about asking permission, because that helps you get kind of the outline of what can be said. And then you'll find out what can't be. No, I don't want to talk about that. Now, you can ask me about this, but don't ask me about that. But it starts with that question. Hey, can I have the permission to ask you about this? No. Or yes. Or sometimes they'll say, no, you really don't want to know about that because it's disgusting. And I know myself well enough. That's really disgusting about me.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to know, even though it might be fun to talk about it.
Right.
But this is a topic that comes up for me in almost any age of men, woman, and of any orientation.
Yep.
Because ultimately, it's the relationship of humans and how they discover being vulnerable enough to level up the interaction, level up the relationship to a place that's satisfying for each other. And again, as you said earlier, Wayne, it's not about an intimate relationship or a parental relationship. It could be just a friend, a work colleague. And that those in themselves define the degree of openness, the degree of vulnerability that you give to that person. I'm really jazzed about today's stuff. And by the way, I'm sorry for the pause. I had it's personal. I can't share with you about a family incident, but I thank you for that.
Here, so they know. Well, look, we're at the top of the hour, guys. It was Dr. Lowell Whiteman, performance coach for elite athletes. You have Wayne Lassane here that is working on getting his certification, and he and his wife have a thriving business for groups, which is awesome. Myself is Dr. Leslie Rogers, psychologist out here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Guys, if you haven't watched this video, please go back and look. It was really amazing. Otis James dropped some nuggets here. He had to jump off to get his kid, though. So on the 10th, June 10th, which is we're on here every other week. So week after next, we'll be on here with Keith Shibley.
July
10th. Keith Shibley will be on here, and he's going to be telling his story, which is talking about vulnerability, right? Prior history of law enforcement, talk about his struggle with substance use and recovery. He has an amazing story, and I can't wait for you guys to hear. So please come back, and anybody that you think would benefit from this. This is Let's Talk Men's Mental Health on here. It's not just for men, it's for women too. Hey, I have a brother. I have a father that was I grew up using substance use, drug addiction. So yeah, I have men in my family, so it's not just for men. You women come on and with others as well, that you think may benefit from this discussion, because we have a lot of great discussions on here.
Let's make sure we remind everybody to have a safe and fulfilling 4th of July holiday. God bless our troops and what they're doing. But remember, if it's on fire, don't touch it. Okay?
just say,
Man.
if it's sparkly, just don't touch it. Just be safe.
Yes. Everybody get their finger July.
And give your keys to the next best person that drives it.
Yeah.
Okay, just be safe, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great 4th of July holiday.
Yes,
Thank you guys so much for
thank you.
supporting us and for joining. And don't forget to get your copy of the Mental Health Talk magazine. Go to the bookstore.
There's great writers in there. There's wonderful writers in there.
Mental Health Talk.live, Live, Mental Health Talk.live, Live. Get your copy. Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Till then. All right, bye.